You close your eyes. The room is dark. The bed is comfortable. Everything is quiet. And then, without warning, your brain decides this is the perfect moment to replay every embarrassing thing you have ever said, draft 12 imaginary arguments you will never have, and start obsessing over whether you turned the stove off. You were not thinking about any of this a minute ago, so why does your brain go loud the moment you try to make it go quiet? The answer reaches back further than you think. Much further. Your brain is not broken at night. It is not malfunctioning. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do, executing a process so old it predates modern humans by hundreds of thousands of years. And once you understand what that process is, the sleeplessness starts to make a very different kind of sense. Let's go back. Way back. Imagine you are a human living roughly 70,000 years ago on the open savanna. You have no walls, no door with a lock, no alarm system. The only thing standing between you and the dark is a small fire, and fires go out. Night is when you die. During the day, your body and brain are occupied. You hunt, forage, move, solve immediate problems. Your attention is pointed outward, toward the world. But when you stop, when you lie down in the dark, something shifts. The external world goes quiet, and your brain does the opposite. It gets louder, it begins scanning. It runs through everything unresolved, everything threatening, everything that could go wrong before sunrise. This is not anxiety. This is threat detection running on a nightly timer. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker, who spent decades studying sleep at the University of California, Berkeley, describes the pre-sleep state as a period of heightened cognitive vigilance, one that evolution almost certainly preserved because the organisms who stayed mentally active at the edge of sleep were the ones who survived to pass on their genes. The ones who drifted off instantly in an exposed environment did not always make it to morning. Your brain kept the alarm. You just no longer have the predator. So now, with no lion to scan for, your brain scans for the next available threat. And in the modern world, threats are never in short supply. A difficult conversation you had yesterday. A deadline you have not touched. A relationship that does not feel quite right. A bill you forgot to pay. Your brain treats every single one of these with the same evolutionary urgency it once reserved for physical survival. It does not know the difference between a lion and an unanswered email at 11 p.m. Here is where it gets stranger. The specific type of thinking that takes over at night is not random. It follows a recognizable pattern that psychologists have been documenting for decades. In 1987, researcher Daniel Wegner at Harvard University ran a now famous series of experiments that revealed something deeply counterintuitive about the human mind. He told participants to try not to think about a white bear. Just do not think about it. Under any circumstances, do not let a white bear enter your mind. Within seconds, almost everyone thought about the white bear. Wegner called this ironic process theory. When you try to suppress a thought, your brain activates two systems at once. One system works to keep the thought away. The other system monitors to make sure the thought is staying gone, and in doing so, it has to keep calling the thought back into active memory to check whether it has left. The harder you push a thought away, the more your brain is forced to reload that thought to verify it has been cleared. This is why telling yourself to stop thinking makes it worse. This is why lying in the dark and demanding your mind go blank is almost guaranteed to fill it with noise. And it does not stop there. Because the brain at night has a very specific relationship with inactivity. During the day, you are forward-facing. You act, you respond, you move through a sequence of events. Your attention is always being pulled somewhere external. But the moment you lie still and close your eyes, a system called the default mode network takes over. Neuroscientist Marcus Raichle at Washington University in St. Louis first mapped this network in detail in the early 2000s, and what he found surprised the entire field. The default mode network is the region of your brain that activates precisely when you are not doing anything at all. It is associated with self-reflection, imagining the future, replaying the past, and simulating complex social scenarios. In other words, it is a machine built for rumination, and you switch it on every single night, voluntarily, the moment you decide it is time to sleep. The moment you stop giving your brain an external task, it falls into this network. And the default mode network, left unsupervised in the dark, tends to do the same thing over and over. It goes looking for whatever is unresolved. It hunts for the open loops. It runs through everything that did not get fully processed during the day, every emotional or cognitive thread still hanging loose, and it starts pulling on them one by one, searching for a resolution that almost never arrives at midnight. Psychologists have a name for this tendency. It is called the Zeigarnik effect. Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik first described it in the 1920s after noticing that waiters could recall long, complex orders with near-perfect precision right up until the moment the food was delivered, and then forgot the orders almost instantly once they were complete. The unfinished task stayed loaded in memory. The finished one was released. She went on to study this systematically. What she found was that the human brain holds incomplete tasks in a kind of persistent working memory, a low-level signal that keeps firing until the task reaches some form of resolution. Finished tasks go quiet. Unfinished ones keep pinging. During the day, the signal is there, but other stimuli compete with it. You get interrupted, you keep moving. New inputs keep arriving. But at night, when the competing noise falls away, the Zeigarnik signals become the loudest things in the room. Every unfinished conversation, every unmade decision, every plan that exists only inside your head and nowhere else still sits in your brain's queue, repeating itself, waiting for something that is not coming. That is what you are lying in the dark with. Not one thought, an entire backlog of open files. And here is the cruelest part of this whole system. The more you care about falling asleep, the harder it becomes. Because sleep is not something you can force. It is not a task you can complete by trying harder. It is something that happens to you when certain conditions align. The moment you turn falling asleep into a goal, something to achieve, something to monitor and control, your brain treats it exactly like any other unresolved challenge. And your default mode network, your vigilance systems, your Zeigarnik loops all fire at once, because now sleep itself has become an open loop. You have made sleep into a white bear. There is also a physical dimension to this that most people never stop to consider. When you are lying in the dark and your thoughts begin to spiral, your body responds. Even moderate psychological distress triggers a measurable release of cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Cortisol is designed to prepare you for action. It sharpens alertness. It keeps the nervous system primed and ready, and it directly suppresses the release of melatonin, the hormone that regulates the timing of your sleep cycle. The more you spiral, the more cortisol rises. The more cortisol rises, the more alert you become. The more alert you become, the more material your brain finds to spiral over. Your own biology runs a feedback loop designed to keep you awake whenever it detects even the suggestion of a threat. Which brings you back to 70,000 years ago, lying in the dark on the open savanna, your brain scanning the night. Because this is not a flaw. It was never a flaw. It was the system working exactly as intended. A deeply sleeping human in an exposed environment was a vulnerable human. A mentally active one, scanning, anticipating, rehearsing scenarios, staying just alert enough to respond. That human survived long enough to become someone's ancestor. You are descended from the warriors. Every person in your bloodline, going back further than anyone can trace, was the kind of creature who lay in the dark and thought too much. The ones who did not, the ones who closed their eyes and drifted off without a second thought, are not especially well represented in your family tree. Your sleepless nights are an inheritance. So what do you actually do with this? Because understanding why something happens is not the same as stopping it. And the research points in a direction that most people find counterintuitive. You stop fighting it. Not because surrender is wise, but because your brain is already running two opposing systems simultaneously, and adding a third system to fight the other two only tightens the spiral. What the evidence actually suggests is a different approach entirely. Matthew Walker's work points to the value of a deliberate cognitive transition before sleep, a slow narrowing of attention that mimics the gradual withdrawal of environmental stimulation your ancestors experienced as they moved from the firelit circle toward rest. Not a command to silence the mind. A gentle redirect towards something narrow, repetitive, and low enough in stakes that the default mode network does not classify it as unfinished business. And Bluma Zeigarnik's own discovery suggests something even simpler. If open tasks are what keep firing, deliberately externalizing them, writing them down, moving them from active memory to somewhere outside your own skull, releases the brain from the obligation to hold them. Not because the tasks are finished, but because the brain registers that the information is stored somewhere safe and no longer requires active maintenance. You are still the creature in the dark. The ancient scan is still running, but you can change what the scan finds. Because the mind that spirals at midnight is the same mind that solved every impossible problem your entire bloodline ever faced. It is the same mind that kept someone alive in the dark, on open ground, in a world that genuinely wanted to eat them, who worried just precisely enough, planned just carefully enough, stayed just awake enough to make it to sunrise. And then morning came, and they were still there. Tonight, when you close your eyes, the room will go dark, the bed will be comfortable, everything around you will go quiet, and your brain will start talking. That is not a malfunction. That is the oldest voice in your family, and all it has ever been trying to do is make sure you survive until morning.